My name is Jackie. So I am a student from Cornell University. I'm in the MPH program, concentrating in food systems and health. Right before that, I was actually in the culinary field. I went to Johnson & Wales University for culinary arts. So we're gonna have some fun today with some of these dishes, okay? Today is lesson 3, and it's Vegetable Appreciation Day and also Scrap Appreciation Day, or in my eyes it is. So we're going to make the spiced potato and spinach empanadas, and then a veggie stir fry. So let's get started. We are going to begin with the potato empanadas. And we're going to work on the filling first. So I'm going to heat my pan. I have an electric stove, so it's going to be medium low. And my stove is just temperamental, so I'm going to keep it medium low. And then I'm going to add some of my vegetable oil. We're going to work on the filling first, and I'll show you the ingredients. Okay. So we have minced garlic, diced onions, and I had extra leeks from the stock that I was making during the last lesson. So I figured I could use the extra pieces, and I sliced it very, very thin because that part is a bit tougher. And rather than throwing it out, we want to utilize all the parts of the vegetable. So I figured I'd add it for more flavor. I have diced potatoes and diced carrots. And for the sake of time, I boiled it about 3/4 of the way so that it's easier and faster to cook for today, okay? I'm just gonna spread the oil a little bit. And then I have chopped spinach. If you have frozen spinach, that's great. Fresh spinach, that's fine too. Okay. And then we have the empanada wrappers. So I bought these pre-made from the grocery store. If you'd like to experiment and make your own, that's totally fine. That's actually a lot more fun. There's another option of using masa harina, which is like a corn flour, and it's just corn or flour and water, and then you could add some salt to it if you'd like, and you make a dough out of it and then roll it out. So about this size. You'll see it later when I'm wrapping everything. And yeah, you just roll it out really, really flat, and then you can use that as your wrap. You could also use a pastry dough if you'd like. If you can't find the empanada wrappers, that's okay too. Okay. So we're gonna get started now with filling. This should be warm enough.
Jackie, if I was gonna make my own empanada wrappers, would I make that first before I started on the filling?
Yes, well, either or, because the filling, we're just cooking it right now so that it's ready. So I'm doing it for a time, I'm just doing it right now, but if you want to make the dough ahead of time, it depends on the type of dough you're making. So with the masa harina, the corn wrapper, you can make that before or after. With this filling too, by the way, you can save some of it if you don't use everything today. And you don't have to cook everything at once. That's the nice thing about it. Another comment I'm going to make about these empanadas, you can freeze them before you're frying them, of course. You know, once you have them wrapped and you seal them, you can put them in the freezer, put them in a Ziploc, and then put them in the freezer, and then you can fry them when you want a snack, midnight snack. I know I always get hungry at night. So yeah, you can make it ahead of time if you'd like. If you don't want to, that's okay too. So it all depends on the type of dough you're using. Any other questions? That was a really good question, Tess. Thank you. Oh yeah, you can definitely put them in the freezer as long as you're not frying them beforehand. You could also do that with egg rolls or dumplings. Just have them. Excuse me. If you seal them the right way, it'll be great. It won't get that freezer burn or anything like that. And then just thaw it out a little bit before you want to use it, and then fry them or bake them. Baking is probably healthier, but the fried food is good. Okay, so that's about ready. I'm going to add the garlic. I think you can see. Oh yeah, great. So you can see the garlic and the leeks. And I'm going to add the leeks, right, into the mixture. But if you wanted to deep fry the leeks or like bake them, you can do that too. And then you can you can use it as a garnish on top of the empanadas. That'll be yummy. And I'll talk about like the dipping sauces or other garnishes you can put on the fried empanadas afterwards, okay? So let's use this one. So right now we're just gonna let this break down a little bit, let it release its flavor. And I purposely dice the onions as opposed to slice them because we want to break everything down. You could always have a chunkier filling, but I don't know. I just like mashing the stuff, the filling, and then putting it into the empanada wrapper. Also, excuse me. Another thing you could do, we're using vegetables today, right? But if you would like protein in this, you can add meat if you'd like. That's totally fine. And that's the nice thing about this too. Okay, so I do see a question in the chat. Did you want to say it out loud or do you want me to read it? Okay, I'll read it. Oh, okay. So do you have any tips for when to use certain types of oil, vegetable, versus olive, avocado? Okay, so avocado, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up because we are frying things today. So for oil, olive oil doesn't really have the highest temperature. Like when you're cooking, it might burn quickly, but avocado oil is really good. Peanut oil is good, but I know there are some people with allergies. So I'm using vegetable oil, and so you'll see it later when I'm frying the empanada. You want to heat your oil, but you don't want it to the point where it's burning. When it starts to smoke, that's just gonna ruin the flavor of your meal or your dishes. And another trick too that I will mention again later, when we're frying the empanadas or when you're frying anything, if you want that nice crispy outside, you want to put fewer items in the skillet or the pan that you're cooking in, because if you add more items, then it'll lower the temperature. So try to keep it at a minimum, and you'll see when I do it later. That was a great question. Thank you for asking that.
Last time.
So, did someone have a question? I don't know if I just heard. Okay. Okay, so we're just stirring this now and trying to give it some color. And you're going to start to smell it. I'm actually going to turn on my exhaust because so you don't want to inhale all the just everything that you're cooking. It's not that healthy. So it's always good to actually do it before. It was my mistake. I forgot to press it, but it's good to do it or to turn it on about like 10 minutes to 15 minutes before you start cooking, and then 10 minutes to 15 minutes after. Or you could open your windows. It's really hot, so I don't want to open mine, and my dog is going to bark if I open my window. Very, very sensitive, all the sounds. Okay, so this is about ready. You see the leeks? It's they were a bit round earlier, right? Now they're kind of like breaking apart, and it smells really good, actually. I love using garlic. Now we're going to add the onions. I have red onions. If you have other ones, that's okay too. I just had this in my pantry, so just add that. Okay, and let this cook down a bit more. And so the seasonings that I chose for this particular one is going to be paprika and cumin and salt and pepper, or salt and pepper. If you like using other spices or herbs, feel free to add them in. If you have fresh herbs, that's great. That's even better. If you have dried herbs, I know I have that spice rack. Might as well use it. You already have it, right? You don't want to waste it. But whatever flavors you like, feel free to add it. If you wanted to add butter, you can add butter. And that's, once again, another way to utilize the things that you have in your fridge. And also, if you don't have spinach, that's okay. You can substitute it with another green. You can use kale even, but the only thing with kale is that you would have to cook that before adding in the other ingredients, just so that that kale could really cook, soften up a bit, and chop it up quite a bit, so that you don't get huge clumps of kale. All right, so that's working. All right. So I'm going to show everyone the discs that I have. I know we're not using this quite yet, but I figured I'd show you while we're waiting. Okay. So for empanadas, you can really use different size. You can make it into a different size. You don't have to use this particular disc. All right, so this is the size of the empanada dough, okay, the disc itself. And if this one has like about 10, which is going to be nice. I mean, it's just me here, so hopefully I don't eat all 10 tonight. I will freeze them, but yeah, when you're rolling out your own, you can make it this thin. That would be ideal, just so that the filling could fully cook. If it's par cooked, and then the dough could cook evenly too, and you're gonna have a nice golden texture. Okay, so that's about ready. If you could get it to the onions to break down a little more, that would be nice. But this is okay too. Mine is just going to have some chunks in it. Now I'm going to add the diced potatoes and carrots. And as I mentioned earlier, if anyone missed it, I boiled these about 3/4 of the way, just so it cooks faster because of time constraints with the class. So this is a good amount too. This is going to yield a lot of filling. So more than likely it won't fit all of this mixture. It's not going to fit in the 10 empanadas, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to increase or put my heat to like medium high at this point. Since I added more ingredients into the pan, that's going to lower my heat. And then at this point, I am going to add the salt, pepper, and the other spices that I like. So here's the paprika. Any questions so far? Okay. And also, I always mention this, always have tasting spoons so that while you're cooking, you can try what you're making. If it's too salty, not salty enough, add some more. And that's how you learn how to balance the flavors in your dish. Added some salt. And I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can still see that. Okay. So I'm starting to mash it with a spatula. If you have a masher, that would probably be helpful. You could also use the food processor if you'd like. Just make sure you don't put the food in when it's really hot. Hurt yourself or break the machine sometimes. Been there. So yeah, I'm starting to mash these. I don't want mine too clumpy. You see the potatoes working with me. It's great. Nice and soft. Okay, so I added salt. I'm going to add some black pepper. Has anyone ever made empanadas or anything like that? You can always use different, yeah? Okay, great. Yeah, and the nice thing about this is that you can make this into like a family activity. I actually used to make empanadas when I was little with my grandmother. And I would always be in charge of making or sealing the empanadas, and I'll show you that later too. So just have to do that, and I would always have to use a fork. It was a nice way to bond with my grandmother and try the different flavors that the Filipino culture has. We made the Filipino empanadas, but there are different variations to it.
I made empanadas for a linguistics tea. I ate empanadas in Paraguay. And so I made an Paraguayan empanada, which is ground beef and egg. And then I made a variety of other things, including cheese empanadas with corn filling. I don't remember what else all I made.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love empanadas.
They're great, right? Have you tried baking them, or do you usually fry them? That goes for anyone.
Years and years ago, and I fried them.
You tried? Yeah, I like to fry too. Okay. Yeah, you can always bake them too. That's another option. I mean, I haven't tried baking them, but they look delicious. With baking, you would just have to put like oil, like brush it with oil or butter, so that it doesn't dry out. Okay, so I added some more spices, and I'm going to continue to mash it. Okay, and I saw some other comments on there. Apple caramel. Oh, that sounds delicious. I have not made any dessert empanadas yet, but I would like to. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, maybe you can try making this one, the potato one, next time. The nice thing about this potato one too is that, you know, potatoes have like a somewhat of a neutral flavor. You know, you gotta spice it up. But for the Filipino one, it's usually some ground beef, potatoes, carrots, some celery, and it's all mixed in really well. But we also add raisins. You can chop up the raisins before, because there's always the sweetness in Filipino cuisine, and for me, I can't have too many sweets. But I mean, I do love dessert, but I can't have too many sweets in my savory food. So I tend to add more savory flavors to my empanadas or just dishes in general. Okay, so this is getting mashed up nicely. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to add the spinach. Add spinach. And I chopped my spinach just so it's easier to work with. And as you can see, I'm just trying to mix it. The spinach will cook regardless, especially when we're cooking it. Just want it mixture. Start to mix that. Okay. The carrots aren't meshing too well, but that's okay. Oh, actually, you. Okay. So I'm going to taste this now to see if it has enough salt. So mine needs more salt. Let's put it that way. It needs more salt. Put a little bit more. I'm gonna add a bit of everything actually. So a lot more potatoes than I anticipated. So I'll add more. And I have some dried parsley here. I'm adding it because I really want to use my seasoning and my spices and herbs. With dried herbs, a good trick is to put the amount that you want in the palm of your hand, and then like crumple it up with the other palm. That's going to release some of the flavor, some of the oils, and then sprinkle on. But if you have the fresh herbs, that's even better. Okay. Okay. So this is about done. Turn off the heat. Okay. You see all the different colors. It's very, very pretty. If you were to add other types of vegetables with other colors, that's even nicer. It's a lot of fun to eat too if you're having a little get together or just dinner with the family or by yourself. That's fun too. And the food is beautiful. That's the main part. So I removed it from the heat. Okay. And now I'm going to put my smaller skillet here. And bear with me, it's just me here at my place. So I have a limited amount of pots and pans, and I'm only going to use the small one for today. So we have our filling now, right? In here. You can store some of them, or some of it, excuse me. You can store some of it if you're not going to use all of it. You can add it to, you don't have to add it to your empanada. You can repurpose this, which is really great. You can add it to, you can make it into a salad, like a fresh salad. Well, somewhat fresh, like a potato salad. There, let's put it that way. To a salad like that. You can add it to a bowl. Like this could be like your mashed version if you want to mash it up some more, and then add some protein. I know for the first lesson we made a grain bowl, and I was telling everyone, you know, you can change up the bowl every time. It doesn't have to be like quinoa or rice and then protein and greens. It can be anything you want. So this could be something you could add to your bowl. You can shape it into little balls, and then what is it called? Sorry. And then you can cover it with breadcrumbs and then fry it that way. That's another option. So it's like a veggie meatball kind of thing. You can do that too. So, and I know today I'm not going to use all of this, so I'm going to store some of it in here, and then I'm just going to let it cool before I put it in the fridge, just a little bit. Okay. So I'm thinking about like half. Okay, so let's move forward. It's here for now. Okay, so now we're going to work on filling the empanadas, okay? And I'm filling this before I get started on the stir fry because I would like the seal to stay. So after I use the fork to make the little edges, to make the crimp, I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and then fry them after, just so that it can like stay. So you just want to grab like a plate or cutting board or some flat surface. I'm just going to use this. It's going to make it easier for me. And I will show you this in a second, okay? So I'm going to take one of these, and I'll show you the amount that I'm going to use per empanada. It's going to be like this amount. So that's like a tablespoon and a half. And that might be a little, no, that's okay. So it depends on the size that you get. This is, I'm going to say like 5 to 6 inches. So I'm going to show you this here. Maybe I'll show you here, actually. It's probably easier. So it's like that, small. And then you want to put it towards the middle and then fold it in half. Now you're going to get some of the filling out. It's going to try to come out of the sides, right? So just try to seal it in and just seal it too. Now I'm going to use the fork to make little edges, and I'll show you that as soon as I finish. And you want to do it on both sides, okay? And I'm starting to feel the empanada in my hand, and the filling is like, it looks like it's going to break the dough a little bit. Should be okay. Just be very careful when you're handling it. So I'm using a fork. If you have something that's actually for empanadas, that's great. I use a fork. It's okay. It works for me. And I'm just going to make little edges, and I'll show you. Okay, so here are the edges, and you just go like that. And then I'm going to flip it and do the same on the other side, okay?
Jackie, what do I do if I tear it when I'm making it? Do I need to get a new one?
No, because you don't want to waste the dough. You can still use it. If you have like egg wash, you try to seal the empanada dough together. Depending on how large the tear is, of course. If not, then just fry it. You can just have like a little snack while you're making the other ones too. So I hope that answered that. But you should be okay because the filling isn't like really hard. And there's a question: does this work with canned potatoes too? Yeah, you can use any vegetables you like. If it's canned, you'll see I'm going to use canned chickpeas later for the other dish. You can use it for it. You can use any type of vegetable you like. I just chose potatoes because I love potatoes, and I always have potatoes here at the house, at my apartment, and I don't want them to go to waste. See, so I did both sides just so it gets sense, and it's somewhat even. It's not perfect, but that's okay. And once again, guys, you see how you asked about tearing? You see how this is? You can see the carrot coming out, right? That's okay. Once it fries, see if you like squeeze it together a little bit, that'll be fine. But you want that amount of filling so it's not too much. At this point, I'm going to just put it on a plate. This is what I have. You can, if you have something with a lid, that's great too. And if you put wax paper so that you can keep it separated, that would be very helpful. I'm just going to make 2. I'll show you again. And then I'm going to put them in the refrigerator and we're gonna get started on the next task, okay? All right. Any questions so far? With the filling, the empanadas, potatoes, anything at all? No? Okay. So once again, I'm going to take about a tablespoon and a half. Just gonna put it towards the middle. And for this one, I'm not using egg wash or anything like that since I am frying it. You don't really need to, that's okay. Okay, so I'll show you. I sealed it this way first. Kind of filling towards the middle too, that's the nice thing. Okay, and I'm going to use the again. If you don't have regular potatoes, if you have sweet potatoes, that would be a nice alternative too. So here's the first side. Oh, there it is. Okay. There's the first side, and I'm going to work on the second side, okay? Okay. All right, so I'm only making 2 for right now, just for time. Okay, so I have it here on the plate. It's going in the fridge for a little bit. And then after like a few minutes, we'll check on it. If we need to use the fork again to seal the edges, we can do that. But it should be all right. Okay, so I'll put the filling to the side for now, and now we're going to get started on the stir fry. Okay, let's see. Here. Let's see the yeah, kind of see it. All right, so I'm going to put turn it on medium hot, well, medium for now. And I'm going to, that's the wrong one. There we go. Okay, I'm going to add vegetable oil. If you have, this is what I have in my house, so I'm using this. If you have a wok or which is like has that shape, like somewhat of a V shape, feel free to use that. That's a really great tool for stir fry. That and like a wooden spoon or tongs or something. That's ideal. I don't have one here, fortunately, so we're going to work with what we have. Okay. I'm gonna add a little bit more actually. And that heat up. So this dish is going to be a vegan dish if I were not using butter, but I am going to add butter to it today because it adds some richness, but feel free to use vegan butter. You can use, or you don't have to use butter at all if you want to. I'm going to let this heat up a bit and I'll show you the ingredients meanwhile. Okay, so we have minced garlic, closer. So minced garlic, I'm using the leeks again because I don't want to waste it. I already have it, might as well use it. It adds lots of flavor. I had extra ginger. This adds a kick to your food if you like ginger. If not, you can leave it out. I didn't put it in the recipe, but I had it here. And once again, I don't want to waste it. And this is fresh ginger, and I just slice it really thin. And then we have sliced onions. I have red onions. You can use any type of onions. And there's diced bell peppers right here. I had green. You have all different colors. That would be beautiful. Okay. Now the canned vegetable question, right? I have canned chickpeas. I don't mind using canned chickpeas. It's flavorful. I like it. Or just canned vegetables in general. But I will say, if you're going to use it, rinse it out twice, just to remove the excess salt. Okay. I rinsed these twice already. If you have the dried chickpeas or dried beans or anything like that, you would have to soak it. You would have to soak it overnight. If not, it's going to be really, really hard, really, really tough, I should say. It's gonna take you longer. So soak it overnight. That'll be fine. And question about the ginger. Yes, so I sliced them into little sticks. So this is somewhat of this is it's supposed to be like a julienne. So very, very thin. Bring some more. There you go. Yeah, so you can slice it. You can mince the ginger too, if you like that ginger flavor. It's nice to just chew on the crispy pieces. So I kept mine that way. Okay, and then we have sliced mushrooms. I sliced mine. You can quarter them. You don't have to cut them at all if you don't want to. That's totally fine too. So I have mushrooms here. You can use different types of mushrooms too. Like, and then we have salt, pepper. I have dried oregano. If you have fresh, if you have any type of fresh herbs, feel free to use the fresh herbs first. That's always delicious. And then we have, in the recipe, I said sherry or balsamic vinegar. I have sherry vinegar. I love cooking with sherry vinegar. But if you have balsamic, that's fine. I also took out my white wine vinegar. If you want to use that, you can use that too. It's just for that acidity. And if you don't have vinegar at all, use your lemons. I have lemons that I should probably use more than I do. So I'm going to add this. I'm going to add the lemon juice as well. And I don't like to waste the lemon peel, so I will save that lemon peel for my water. I know I mentioned this in the previous ones, but you can add it to your water, so it's like has a nice flavor to it. You can bake with this, add the zest to dessert, anything really. You can add it to this dish if you really wanted to. Okay, so we have another question. Rice wine vinegar? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, I love rice wine vinegar. You can add that too. There's also a coconut vinegar that you can use. Experiment. Of course, use what you have first so that you don't waste it, but feel free to try different types of vinegar. And especially if you're using different types of vegetables too, try to have fun and pair those vegetables with the vinegar. And I know that sounds strange because vinegar can be, vinegar has a sour, acidic flavor, or acidity to it, right? So sometimes it's all the same to some people. But believe it or not, you can pair it with different vegetables, and it tastes delicious. So I'm going to add the garlic now. My oil's ready. Can you see it? Yeah. I'll move it in a second. So I'm adding the garlic. I'll add the leeks as well. Okay. And I'll add the ginger. That's okay. Okay. Right. Just want to stir it a little bit. Let's see if I can this carrot closer. Okay. And so in the culinary world, they have the Trinity for your aromatics, right? And just for vegetables or for certain cuisines. So for the French cuisine, you have onions, celery, carrots. For Filipino cuisine, and I'm going to mention that a lot because I grew up with Filipino food and Central American food, because those are my roots. So I'm really familiar with those flavors, and I will bring it up as much as I can because I love those flavors. But the Filipino Trinity is garlic, onions, and ginger. I'm going to add onions later, but that's pretty much what you're starting with too. And it's always great to release the flavor of those ingredients first. Okay, so we have another question. Coconut vinegar. Yeah, it's great. I don't have any here right now, but it's good when you're just a little side recipe, I guess you could say. If you have the coconut vinegar with soy sauce and some garlic, and you and a bay leaf, and you braise your chicken in that type of marinade or that type of liquid, the flavor is phenomenal. It has the salty, it has the sour, the umami from the protein that you're using, and then if you like adding sugar, or if you like some sweetness in your food, you can add sugar to it. So it's great, and you can use it for this too. Okay, so I'm just going to get started or get moving. Okay, I'm going to add the red onions now. And since this is stir fry, you can of course constantly stir, and you can turn your heat up higher if you like. Excuse my arm. These are really great questions. I'm excited. I want to make everything at this point. Okay, I'm going to add mushrooms next, okay? It's okay if your onions aren't like soft. You don't really want them to be soft for this stir fry. That's why I purposely have them sliced so that you can have different textures, different sizes of vegetables, okay? So we're going to add the mushrooms now. Mine are sliced, and get a good coat of that oil and ginger and garlic. All right. And I'm going to add salt, pepper, and other herbs and seasoning. Okay. Let's use this. You would typically stir it more than what I'm doing right now, but that's also because I'm not using a wok. You're using a wok, that heat is going to be really high on all parts of the wok, and you have to constantly move it. A little bit higher. The stove is greatest. Okay, and then let's see. Oh, I have the oregano. I'm using dried oregano, so I'm going to do the same thing that I did earlier with the empanada filling. I'm going to put in my palm, just crush it up in your palm. That's about a little less than a tablespoon. Okay, stir it up. And with the mushrooms, if you're not going to slice them or quarter them, just leave them in a little bit longer because you want the center to fully cook. Okay. Okay. So I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but the mushrooms are coated in the oil, so it's going to have that nice flavor with the garlic. So I'm calling this the vegetable stir fry, right? You can use any type of vegetable you want. There is a dish called chop suey, and it's a vegetable stir fry, and you use all different types of vegetables. You use baby corn, you can use celery. I know I don't use my celery all the time. I pretty much use celery for celery juice, which is something I crave all the time. So if I wanted to, I could chop up the excess celery and add it to this stir fry. It has a nice crunch to it. Same with other vegetables that you don't think you're going to use in time. Okay, so that's starting to get soft. Now I'm going to add the bell pepper. There we go. The diced bell peppers. I used one. I will probably have leftover. A lot of food. Okay. Then I'm going to add the chickpeas. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So we stir it up, and then we can add sherry vinegar. I'm going to use the sherry vinegar today. I'm going to use the white wine. And I usually eyeball the amount that I use, but that's also because I like a certain flavor. So let's see. 2 tablespoons. Yeah, 2 tablespoons. You can add as much as you want. If you're working with vinegar that's really strong, I say add little by little and then taste the food. And use it more at this point. Now, I mentioned the butter earlier. I'm going to add butter to this. Just about like a tablespoon. Just to add some richness to the texture and to add some flavor to it too. Going back on lesson 1, which we'll all be able to watch once we post it, I made a green bowl. I used quinoa for that. The great thing about that quinoa is that if you don't mix it with other ingredients, if you just keep it plain, you can take this this veggie mix and then add the butter and then mix in the quinoa, the cooked quinoa, and then that's another dish in itself. And you can add cheese or any type of crumble on top. All right, so I'm going to add this amount of butter there, and you're going to see how it melts. It melts into this nicely. It's really good flavor too. And if you wanted do you see how the liquid from the vinegar it's really thin? If you want to thicken that a bit, you could get the butter before you add it to the pot. You can get the butter and mix it with some flour, and that's called beurre manier. And that's just a technique that you could use to thicken a sauce, to thicken any item or meal item, not menu item, meal item. But I'm not going to do that today. I want to keep it fairly thin, right? Okay. So the butter is melting in there nicely. Okay, so I have a lot of kale that I have to use. For the purpose of the class and then timing, I'm going to add a handful. I'm not going to use all of it, but I will cook this off after. And if you don't use your kale, you can always store it, just wrap it with paper towels, like a wet paper towel or something, and then put it in a separate bag if you already removed it from its container. If you have the container, of course, you can just use the container, but I washed all mine, so I'm going to wrap it with paper towels if I don't use it all. And so there's the kale. Just adding this. Cooking this and stirring it some more. And for the kale, you don't have to cover this because you want it to have some kind of like texture. If I put a lid on this, then the leaves might wilt. We don't really want that. It's going to wilt a little bit, of course, because we're cooking it, but we don't want it to completely wilt. That's what will happen if you put that lid on top. The steam is going to make it darker too. It's another thing. Okay, so you can keep stirring. I see a lot of liquid in mine, so let that dry out a bit. I know I have a question here. So happy you mentioned that, or you asked that question. I don't always cook mine. So you see how we use the sherry vinegar? If you use like a balsamic vinegar or something like that, you can actually take the chopped kale and mash it with your hands and add the vinegar, add the the salt and pepper and massage it. I don't want to say mash. You're gonna massage it with your hands, okay? And you can make a nice salad out of that, and it'll be nice and crunchy. That's a great option too. And you can add the chickpeas, like the sauteed chickpeas. You could always add that. Okay, so this is starting to. I'm going to lower my heat. I'm going to add a bit more of the kale. Actually, since it's wilting. Okay, and at this point, since we're running low on time, you can just keep this going, and then we'll try it in a little bit. I do smell the ginger, it's really strong. Good thing though, ginger is really good. I'm going to start frying the empanadas now, okay? So I'm going to use my small skillet. Yeah, there we go. Using my small skillet, I'm putting heat on medium high. And I'm going to add oil. If you have a larger pan, if you're going to cook quite a few of these, then that's great. Just make sure the heat is nice and strong, okay? And then I'm adding, it's like almost an inch deep of oil, vegetable oil. That's what I'm using right now. See, yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, it can be, and it depends on the type of kale you're using too. That's another thing too. Like the kale that I have right now, this would be easy to massage, but the I believe it's called like dinosaur kale, or there's another, or Tuscan kale. That's a bit tougher. Okay, so we're going to allow the skillet to heat for the empanadas. And you could always test the oil temperature of the oil by getting a piece of the dough or something, or just something that you can cook. Just place it into the oil, and if it starts to bubble or you'll hear that sound, that means it's ready. You want that strong sound. But I just added mine, so I know this is ready. I'm going to stir the vegetables. Okay, and I'm going to taste mine too, actually. Let's see. And you can serve this veggie stir fry if you don't want to eat it alone. You can have it with some rice. You can have it with delicious bread. It's gonna be like a veggie bowl. Very hot. So be very careful when you're tasting. I need more flavor. I'm missing flavor. And once again, it's great to try your food as you're cooking, because sometimes you're missing some flavor, like similar to mine. I need more salt in mine. I have a lot of kale and a lot of mushrooms, and the mushrooms tend to absorb all that flavor. I'll add more oregano. Any questions so far? Any comments? Is there a vegetable that you are curious about that you'd like to add into this dish or any other dishes or anything? Any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself there. Okay.
I have a lot of radishes in my garden. I see it too at the farmer's market. It's like that's what comes up first, right? Is like just lettuce, greens, and radishes. So I wonder if they would be good or too strong.
You can add them. I will be honest, like for me, I tried roasting radishes, and I wasn't a fan of that flavor. But if you pickle them, we pickled them last time. That's a great topping. That's a great garnish. If you want to, and it's also about the slice too, right? If it's like quartered, that flavor is going to be a lot stronger than if you have like a really thin slice. And I'm going to show you that the end product of the pickles actually. So I'm glad you brought that up. Let me show. I'm still letting that oil heat up. So last class we made pickles. We made pickled onions, pickled radish slices, and pickled cucumbers. So here's the cucumber. Look at the beautiful color of that. That's so nice if you put it over a salad or you put it on top of your the empanadas, or you eat it with empanadas. So you can pickle them, Saz. You can also, if you slice them like this, the flavor won't be as harsh, and you can add it to the stir fry. And here's the pickled onions. I love these. Another thing, so for greens, my favorite thing to do with romaine, if you have romaine in the house and you don't know what else to do with it and you don't want a salad anymore, if you have a grill or some kind of, or just put it on the pan actually, just slice the romaine lettuce in half, and then oil it, season it with salt and pepper or whatever, paprika, whatever you want, and then just sear it on that pan or on the grill. And it gives off this flavor and this texture that's so delicious. I don't know, it's like charring. It's really good. And if you have that portion right there, that's like one portion for a person, right? And then you can make some kind of like avocado crema or whatever dressing. I mean, if you want to use dressing, you can use dressing too. You can make cashew crema. Just drizzle that on top. And if you have, it's great for the summer too, actually, because you can utilize those vegetables or the romaine, and then you can add the protein that you have on the grill, if you're grilling. If not, you can always add the protein that you have on your stove. Okay, so my stir fry is pretty much done. I'm going to remove it from the heat. I don't want it to cook. Okay, go. So that I'm going to put it in a bowl so y'all can see it. Let's see. Yeah, so this oil is ready. Another way to tell if your oil is ready is, yeah, so it's much thinner, right, than what it was before. So that means it's ready because it's not melted. It's just much thinner. It's going to keep this really well. Okay, so I'm going to add the empanadas that I put in the fridge, and it's still good. That seal is still good, and at this point it's holding, it's keeping its integrity. Okay, so when we place this in here, I'm going to do one at a time. You see it's starting to bubble. I'm just putting one empanada in at a time because my skillet's small. If I add two, it may stick together. It may also, well, I know it will lower that temperature, and then it's just gonna get soggy. You want like a nice crispy outside for that empanada. Okay, so I'm just gonna let that go for now. And then we want it golden on both sides. If you like, a charred flavor, that's totally fine too. So just cook it a little longer. That's okay. But you do want the dough to cook. And you see how it's bubbling on the edges? That's okay. It's just frying. It's doing its thing. Let's see. It's ready. You don't have to. Yeah, that's it. Any questions so far? I know we're running really low on time, but any questions while I'm still on here? Nope. Okay. All right. So when I'm frying, I usually like to have a sheet pan and then something like paper towels or something to take that oil away. But I'm using my sheet pan right now for all the other ingredients, so I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to get a plate and put paper towels. That's okay. Totally fine. Just work with me. Okay. And after you fry the empanada too, or anything that's deep fried, it's good to salt it after as well. So should be going fairly quick. Actually. Yeah. So mine is already brown, and since my filling, see that brown, it's nice and golden. Since the filling is already cooked, I'm not going to be too concerned about what's in there. If it was meat, then yes, that's a different story. But since the potatoes and the carrots and the spinach, like everything's all in there, it's ready to go. This should be fine. You can eat this right after. Let's see, yeah. And it's not opening up. Oh, another quick comment before I let you all go. If that empanada starts to open, that just means that you didn't seal it well enough, okay? And that's okay, it's still edible. Still eat that. And you can break it apart and then add it to a salad or something. But I'm going to plate this stir fry. Boom. So the smaller parts of the kale did get darker. That's because it's a small. Okay. Okay, so here is my stir fry. It's good with some rice, it's good with noodles, good with bread. It's my portion, and there's a ton there too. I'm gonna let it cool, and then I'm going to store it. And it's great because if you make a large amount, you can always save it for the next day, for lunch, or leftovers. So that's always nice. And I know I have a question, but just 1 second, I'm just going to double check this. See, so this is almost done. I'm going to show you the other side here. See how it's nice and golden? And put it a little bit longer, just a little bit, but that's going to be ready shortly. So back to that question. The first one, if you choose to bake the empanadas in the oven, is it possible for the dough to be a little crispy or flaky? Yes, for sure. So if you brush melted butter or do an egg wash, that's a nice way to get it crispy. And you want your heat to be nice and high when you're baking it, so it gives off that hard shell. And then, can you fold them shut instead of crimp, like gyoza? So if you just shut it like that, it may open. More than likely, it's going to open. You can fold. Yes, Barbara, thank you. You can fold over the edges as well, similar to gyoza, or I wish I had photos of it, but you can fold it in a way where it looks like, I like to call it like a curl. It's really pretty. It has like a spiral look to it, or in my opinion, it looks like a spiral. It's very pretty. So you can do it as long as it stays shut. That's what you want. I use a fork because, and I don't know if my grandma just asked me to use a fork because I was little. She wanted me to do something. So I use a fork, and I'm going to continue using the fork. So here is the empanada. Go. Nice golden brown on both sides. I'm going to add the next one, and I know that we're out of time, but I am going to stay behind if anyone else has questions, additional questions or comments. Thank you all for joining. I had a really great time, and I hope you all get to try this at one point. And please feel free to email me if you have questions about ingredients or substitutes, anything like that, okay? Have a good one.